Hello, world. My name is April. I got infected with a virus, or should I say the virus, because you all know which one I'm talking about by now, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I shouldn't have been so careless, I guess. You could say I'm an adventurous girl. My parents love extreme sports, and so I guess I inherited it from them. We all practice several sports, but everybody's got their own preferences. Dad likes to raft and motocross. Mom and I love hiking. Ever since I was a little kid, I've attended a lot of extreme summer camps. Also, I was a Girl Scout too. No, I know that's not really extreme, but hey, who said sporty people don't love making and selling cookies, right? I've always enjoyed trying new things. I look up to my parents. They're an awesome couple. They met each other bungee jumping when they were young, which is so romantic. Ever since, their life has been a nonstop adventure. They've traveled a lot, visited amazing, incredible places, like a bunch of countries in South America, Europe, and Asia. Every time they come up with a new story to share with me about their trips, it seems like they have a million stories because they never repeat or run out of them. My favorite is this one time they were backpacking through South America. They crossed a large portion of this territory in a motorcycle from Venezuela all the way down to Argentina. Could you imagine that? It took months, but it must have been amazing. Of course, things changed, especially when you have kids. I came into their life and they had to put on hold their wild adventures in order to raise me. Babies are a huge responsibility, so they decided to focus and give me a stable life. They couldn't just go with the flow anymore, living spontaneously. All that to be said, it wasn't like I ruined their life. They were actually planning to have a kid. I wasn't a shocking surprise to them. They wanted to have me. They were planning on having kids for quite some time. I mean, they lived fully just the two of them for 10 years. Then they finally were determined to settle down and start a family, which is cool because they got to live and do their thing. As the great American poetress once said, they had the best of both worlds. Even so, they didn't give up their passions. They both kept practicing sports, but just inside of our state, not all around the world. Sometimes they did do special trips around the country to compete with a group of their friends, but that was about it. Besides, they weren't young anymore, so they don't have the same rockin' bodies that they used to, nor the same energy, just the same wild, free spirit. And yeah, I know you think that your parents having rocking bodies is weird, but I've seen pictures. Mine were hot. Anyways, they're still really special. And ever since I was a teen, I wanted to have what they have, this crazy, passionate love. I wanted to find someone adventurous with whom I could do all these things like they did and share crazy experiences together, just like my parents. Through all of these years, I didn't realize that the person I was looking for was right in front of me. My parents' best friends are another couple that they met on one of their long trips quite a long time ago. They're really similar to my parents, and they're kind of like a second set of parents to me. I grew up playing with their kids, David and Chloe. David is 2 years older than me, and Chloe and I are the same age. She's my best friend, and we've always wanted the same things out of life. I saw David as Chloe's older brother for many years and nothing more. I even thought of him kind of like my brother too. But later, our relationship evolved into something more romantic. 4 years ago, I realized that I liked him, and he liked me back. The chemistry between us just kind of appeared out of nowhere, which is weird because, well, we treated each other like siblings. But we knew we were right for each other. We started dating and quickly became a serious couple. Chloe was happy for us, but at the same time, I think she felt a little sorry for herself. I found what I was looking for in her brother, and she still hadn't found it. She felt excluded and alone, even though we tried to include her most of the time. Fortunately, sometime after, she met her boyfriend, Nate. Nate is also into extreme sports, and the four of us are an incredible team. All these trips we've gone on were like double dates, mostly because our parents thought it was safer. But in the 4 years that David and I have been dating, we've never gone on a trip alone. After saving up money for a while, we decided to go on a trip, just the two of us, to Brazil. It was to be the celebration of our 4th anniversary. We were so freaking excited, especially because I'd never really traveled outside of the country. I don't know a bunch of countries like my parents do. David at least had visited Mexico and the Dominican Republic, but he'd never been to South America. We did a lot of research and discovered that Brazil is one of the best places for extreme sports, which is why we chose it. We planned and scheduled the whole stay, which was a 3-week trip. Plenty of time to try as many outdoor activities as we could. The waiting was finally over, and I couldn't be happier when we were getting on the plane. I felt like it was going to be the best month of my life, but it turned into the worst. It downgraded into a total, complete nightmare. Without further explanation, the pilot told us that we couldn't get off the plane when we arrived in Brazil. What? Why? We didn't understand what was going on. We spent hours on the tarmac, just waiting, stuck there, stranded, with nobody having any answers for us. People were getting mad and desperate. I mean, at least we deserved to know why we were being detained. We asked for more information just to calm our minds. People were scared. Almost all the passengers thought we were somehow involved in some sort of terrorist attack. Was the plane hijacked? I even started asking myself this at some point. Passengers thought they were going to die. You could hear children crying and their parents trying to calm them down. It was horrible. Those few hours felt like an eternity. The pilot was talking through the loudspeakers. He said that somebody on the airplane was infected with coronavirus. Apparently, there was a woman sitting a few seats behind us, and she'd been coughing the entire flight. We heard her, but we thought it was just, a cold or whatever, not COVID-19. Apparently, the flight crew took the woman and separated her from the rest of the passengers. They interviewed her, asked her about her symptoms. She had all the typical signs of the virus: dry cough, shortness of breath, and fever. She also said she'd been in Italy just about a week ago. Uh-oh. It was pretty obvious to the crew that she was infected with COVID-19. And because we were all in proximity with her and she'd been coughing, the whole flight, we were all likely exposed. We were finally escorted off the plane by a bunch of people wearing hazmat suits, like full-on hazmat gear. We were exhausted, delirious. We'd been sitting on that flight for 7 hours after we'd arrived to Brazil, plus 9 hours on the flight, a total of 16 hours. It was awful. I'm usually really patient, but if I didn't get off that damn plane, I was going to lose my mind. I was exhausted. My butt hurt, my back hurt, my full body was hurting. I just wanted to get out of there, go to the Airbnb and relax. I needed a spa day after this. But no, we were told that we were going to be put up in quarantine. David and I hadn't admittedly paid much attention to the virus. We knew there were a lot of cases in China and Europe, but we had no idea it had arrived to America. That's the only reason we were going on our trip without any worries. At first, I thought everybody was making a huge deal out of nothing, but then I realized how wrong it was. It's super contagious and obviously has spread all over the world now. Anyways, it was like a scene out of some crazy apocalyptic movie. They had cleared out the whole airport and were escorting us with police and other people wearing full-on hazmat suits, masks, gloves, the works, to take us to quarantine in the hospital right away. That's why we were stuck on the plane for so long, because they had to evacuate the airport. I guess the hospital was already prepared for us because Brazil had already had a few cases, but we were among the first few hundred. Doctors and authorities took us to isolation quarters, and we all just had to wait it out while our symptoms started to show up. Thank goodness it wasn't as bad for some of us compared to a lot of other people. But don't get me wrong, I felt horrible. Some other people had it worse. The hospital's environment was so depressing, and there were even a few people that died from the flight. David and I were really lucky because we got infected and we got better, but we made a full recovery. We could not be more relieved. Still, in those weeks, the number of cases increased, and we were told to stay in quarantine, went directly to our Airbnb, and just were locked down. We wanted to go back to the US after this terrible experience, but now all the flights are canceled and we can't get back home. We're stuck in a country we don't know at all. We can't speak the language, and we can't even go outside. The first few days were really stressful because we didn't even know where we could get food. Luckily, we found a grocery store 2 blocks away. It's been over a month now that we've been in Brazil, and the only views we've seen of the country is the trip from the airport to the hospital and then from the hospital to the Airbnb. It's so depressing to be among all these incredible places, and yet we can't go outside or do anything. We've learned our lesson. We should have heeded the coronavirus matter way more seriously and done research about Brazil's condition in the pandemic. We knew about the severity of the virus, and we should have waited to do our trip. Then we would be actually enjoying our time in Brazil instead of being stuck inside. Honestly, we were careless. And now we know that the coronavirus for sure is a big deal because we've gone through it and it sucked. We've seen the hospitals overflowing with people and it was horrible. So please be careful. I cannot wait for this pandemic to be over and then we can go back home. I miss my family. Please, guys, stay safe, stay home, and wash your hands.